You're watching the PBS NewsHour. I am Hari Srinivasan, and there's been quite a bit on the internet in the past 24 hours or so about the founder of Bitcoin, the alleged founder of Bitcoin, revealing himself to the world. A little bit more insight and analysis on why this all matters and who this person is. We're going to talk to Andy Greenberg, who's a senior writer at Wired. They have been covering the story for quite some time, and they even had this person on kind of a short list last year. So, Andy, why, first of all, for someone who's not that familiar with Bitcoin, bring us up to speed. What is this 15-year mystery about who created it?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit. Did you say 15-year mystery?
Yeah, or the mystery, and why has it been such a mystery on who created Bitcoin, and why does that matter?
Yeah, sorry. So Bitcoin is only this is a 7-year mystery. It's a pretty long mystery, but essentially, Bitcoin is a remarkable creation. It's the world's first truly successful cryptocurrency, and it's worth billions and billions of dollars at this point. The creator of Bitcoin, who we know under the name Satoshi Nakamoto, this sort of mysterious figure who has never identified himself in the real world, or maybe until today, but we don't know, controls 1 million Bitcoins. In addition to having invented Bitcoin, he or she also possesses 1 million of them, which would make him or her worth about $500 million in real money. So it's a big question who this person is. Also, Bitcoins, if you use them in a certain careful way, you can spend them somewhat anonymously. This is like a kind of untraceable fortune, and whoever controls it has some political, some real power in the world through that fortune. So, that's part of why we're so interested in figuring out who Satoshi Nakamoto is.
All right, so in the past couple of years, there've been basically red herrings. People have been suspected to be Satoshi Nakamoto, and they've had reporters follow them around and try to make a case on whether or not this is the person. So why did this person, Craig, come forward, and what does he have to say for proof that he is in fact this person?
So the story with Craig Wright is that in November of last year, Wired was leaked a ton of emails and accounting documents and transcripts that basically from an unidentified source that essentially identified Craig Wright as the creator of Bitcoin. He didn't name himself; he was outed to us essentially, and then we sort of investigated. We posed these two possibilities: that either this was all a big hoax, a very elaborate hoax years in the making, or that this guy, Craig Wright, this Australian cryptographer, actually created Bitcoin. Now, Craig Wright never actually came out and said himself either way until today. Now he is claiming that he is Satoshi Nakamoto. Whether this is real or whether it is just another step in this kind of increasingly elaborate and unbelievable hoax, it still isn't clear. I mean, there is a lot of doubt in the Bitcoin community and the larger cryptographic community. People who have heard this before think that we've identified Satoshi Nakamoto in the past and it's been wrong. So there's a huge amount of skepticism, and we don't know the answers.
So he also seemed to share with the world what he kind of publicly thought was proof. And as you said, I mean, people who are really engaged in the Bitcoin community tore that to shreds very quickly. So you spoke with someone who you say he had, or who he says he kind of proved it privately. What's the difference between his public proof and the private proof that he went out and talked to a few reporters about?
Well, that's the thing. There's this bizarre disconnect between essentially two different kinds of proof that Craig Wright has offered. In public, he posted this, there's this kind of technical thing where with the very earliest Bitcoins, we know that those belong to Satoshi Nakamoto. He was essentially the only one using Bitcoin at the time. And there's a certain private key, it's called, that you have to control to spend those Bitcoins. But you can also use that private key to sign a message in a way where you can prove that by signing it, that you have that key. It's sort of an unforgeable signature, just like, signing a piece of paper with your John Hancock, So Craig Wright said that he had done that and posted this message on his blog, but it was very quickly found to be essentially a fraudulent signature, which is very strange because at the same time, there are these several people, these kind of well-known people in the Bitcoin community and some media, some journalists who say that they've had private demonstrations where Craig Wright has, in fact, signed a message with one of those private keys in a way that's very convincing. That's not the same kind of sort of fraudulent, unbelievable evidence he's posted on his blog. And this is like one, for instance, the chief scientist of the Bitcoin Foundation visited Craig Wright in London and got a demonstration where he chose a message, had Craig Wright sign it on a new computer that had just been bought in a factory sealed box. And this is a very difficult scam to pull off if it's not real. And Gavin Andresen, the chief scientist of the Bitcoin Foundation, was 100% convinced by this. He believes that Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto. So that's a new wrinkle in this, that very, very credible sources are now fully convinced that Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin.
So if he's not the real guy, what does he gain from this? Why does he do this? Is this because he wants publicity for something else, just to try to get out in the kind of internet world and say, hey, I'm somebody really special, and by the way, I got $450 million behind me, so you should like me?
It's totally unclear what sort of long con this might be, if it is a con at all. One theory is like, yeah, sure, to sort of pretend you had all this money behind you and try to trick venture capitalists into investing in some startup or something like that, to do some sort of scam where it's like, look, I'm good for it. If you loan me this money, I have all this capital. I'm going to use it to start a business, or who knows what. There's all sorts of things one can do by pretending to have $500 million. But it's all very strange, because the real Satoshi Nakamoto at any time could easily prove himself or herself. So that scam would fall apart very quickly. And more importantly, it does seem that like this testimony today from Gavin Andresen and other folks seems to be a very elaborate kind of con, if it is one that would involve elaborate hacks or some kind of fraudulent software creation, something that it starts to just tip the scales in this kind of Occam's razor test. The scam starts to sound more complicated than just the truth, if in fact the truth is that he created Bitcoin.
Okay, so here we are on May 2nd, late in the afternoon. In your opinion, is it settled? Is the man who's come forward the founder of Bitcoin?
It's absolutely not settled. In fact, this has only gotten hairier as a story. I mean, it was unclear at first, whether this was a hoax or whether we had found the creator of Bitcoin. And I think we've only gone further down that rabbit hole. Some people who, such as Gavin Andresen, one of the only people in the world, in fact, who has corresponded by email with Satoshi Nakamoto, now believe that we found the guy. But it doesn't make it so. I mean, there's still more proof that needs to be uncovered for us to put a nail on this story.
All right, Andy Greenberg, senior writer for Wired, the mystery, 17 years and going, kind of continues. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.